Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers, and we're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and today we go back to a familiar subject.
We do. We're going back to interview the new, relatively new president of the Oklahoma Bar Association, Renee DeMoss. Every year when the Bar Association president has changed, we have invited the new president on, and she's the next in a long line of distinguished people who have held that position. But she's had a good bit more activity to deal with, particularly in her first few months in office than most have. She's been dealing with some of the things that are going on in the state to try to affect judicial independence. And that's what we're going to ask her to talk about today, is what she's been doing, what is judicial independence, why is it important, and just find out basically how Renee's getting along.
Should be an interesting show. We'll get to it when we return on The Verdict.
What I can offer is insight into understanding the Native American art, how these artists are expressing themselves as cultural people. I am Heather Ottone. I'm a Native American researcher and curator, and I am Chickasaw. I can remember in first grade the teacher saying, "Well, you're so lucky you don't look Indian." That was difficult to hear, because it was what I was. It's what I am. I think there's a renaissance going on amongst the tribes. I think the Chickasaws are leading that. We didn't die. We're not gone. So what are we now? And what can we do now to start to form that identity, to survive into another century, and to have the culture guiding us into that future? That would be significant.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
It's a North American energy revolution. We're the fastest growing source of new oil and natural gas supplies in the world.
The shift to North American energy will create approximately 3 million jobs.
All that money we've been sending overseas, $400 billion a year. Imagine that staying in our economy. It's a game changer.
Real energy independence starts now, and it starts with Oklahoma.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're really pleased to welcome to the set of The Verdict Renee DeMoss, the president of the Oklahoma Bar Association. Renee took over around the first of the year and serves for 1 year. She has previously been president of the Tulsa County Bar and the Oklahoma Bar Foundation. She's with the very prestigious law firm of Gable Gottwals in Tulsa, where she practices and has for 26 plus years, principally in litigation. She's won many awards and engaged in many projects for bar activities and advancement of the Tulsa and state communities, and is really well respected in the bar. This is her first appearance on The Verdict. We're really pleased to have her. She was elected president to serve for the year of 2014. Renee, glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming.
Welcome to The Verdict, Madam President.
Thank you, sir.
You're another in a long line of women to lead this organization. Is this sort of a trend?
Well, I don't know if it's a long line. We've had, I think, 4 in the last 10 years. Huh? And I don't think it would be a trend as much as it's really reflective of our profession now. When I went to law school, there were 50% of my class was women. And now they're all doing well and holding great jobs, running firms, judges. And I think it's more, we're moving toward that point when a woman bar president won't be noticed. It will just be, that's another woman in a leadership position, and that's the norm.
And when your partner Jim Sturdivant and I went to law school together at the University of Oklahoma, where you graduated as well,
Yes.
We had 2 women in our class.
Is that right?
Out of about 100, we had 2 women.
Wow.
So it's changed.
We're moving along.
We are. You are.
Would you generally
And we're
describe the
glad.
duties? What are the duties of the president?
Well, I am the primary spokesperson for the 17,000 members in our bar, and I interact with the public and the members and government leaders on issues that are important to the bar and the legal profession. I also, I think, have the responsibility to ensure that we move along in our mission and our goals of the OBA and provide education programs for the public and ensure that we have some good member services.
Now, you have some responsibilities that many other organization presidents don't have, because the Oklahoma Bar Association is basically a self-policing organization that police its members under the scrutiny of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. How does that add to the weight of your duties?
Well, we have an entire division set up to take care of those matters. We have a wonderful general counsel, Gina Hendricks, who is in charge of that department, and she has several attorneys who work with her, as well as investigators who investigate any case that may involve an attorney that comes before them. So I get reports on that, and I follow their progress, but I'm not directly involved in the policing aspect of the bar.
Now, when you were president of the Tulsa County Bar, a lawyer, in order to be practicing in Tulsa, did not have to be a member of the Tulsa County Bar.
That's correct. That's a voluntary bar association.
But the Oklahoma Bar Association is not voluntary, is it?
No, in order to practice law in Oklahoma, you have to be in good standing and be a member of the bar association.
And
That's
being in
true.
good standing, what do you have to accomplish during the year to be in good standing?
Well, that means you haven't committed any ethical violations, you've paid all the dues that you are supposed to pay, and in general have maintained a standard of professionalism and conduct befitting an attorney who practices law in Oklahoma.
Well, and you've got some education responsibilities, do you not? CLE responsibilities.
Yes, yes. You know, our practice of law is changing at such an incredible rate, you know that. And we've had legal scholars who have predicted that the practice of law in legal institutions are going to change more radically in the next 2 decades than they have in the last 2 centuries.
Wow.
So it's quite a challenge for lawyers to keep up with that, technological-wise.
What's driving it? Just
I think there are a lot of different sectors that are involving it. For example, we have institutions like LegalZoom, companies like LegalZoom, who are not necessarily lawyers, but they're putting products on the market that people can use to accomplish certain legal goals. I think it's just technology is part of it. Globalization is part of it. You know, we have attorneys in India who may provide services, who may want to provide services here.
Right.
You know, it's just kind of the whole state that we're in of moving forward with our economy and globalization, and we're becoming a smaller world. And that is having a definite impact on the practice of law.
Well, what trends do you see? Are people more likely to specialize today than they were, say, 5 or 10 or 20 years ago, or less likely?
I think that they are probably more likely to specialize. And I think some of the things that, for example, Kent's and my firm have done traditionally, such as document production for young lawyers and spending a lot of time on that, that is a specific task that is now being outsourced perhaps to people who aren't lawyers, but who can look at a list and figure out, okay, this document should be produced, this one should not. So I think that is something that's happening too.
Are more and more students graduating from colleges with a law degree?
I don't think so. I think recently we've had a trend in admissions going down in all of our law schools, particularly here in Oklahoma too. Part of that is the inability to get a job some places, and that's not just Oklahoma, that's across the United States. And we all know what big debt is involved now. It's just costly to go to graduate school and law school included. So I think kids are looking at that more closely and thinking, what am I going to do? Am I going to have a job? And how much am I going to have to invest to get that job if I do?
There was a time when people didn't exactly know what they wanted to do on a career. They would say, well, I'll just go ahead and go to law school. Those days are pretty much over because of the cost of going to law school in many places. I saw a study recently where nationwide, this isn't true necessarily in Oklahoma, but nationwide the enrollment is down 20% in the past 2 years in law schools, which of course means that the jobs, the high-paying jobs that used to be available have been done away with. And there are a lot fewer jobs, therefore a lot fewer people going to law school. And
Right.
only the really committed ones
Yes.
are willing to do it.
And the ones who are committed to public service and you know, doing that in their legal profession. And I think our law school, we have great deans at our 3 law schools here in Oklahoma, and they're young, they're energetic, and they are all doing a great job of, you know, providing programs that will help their students get jobs and just coping with this changing market.
You have a background of living in rural Oklahoma when you were younger. What is the status of services of lawyers in smaller Oklahoma communities? Are there enough?
That's really interesting you asked that, because in our law schools committee just this year we've been working with our law schools and trying to, we've set up programs where we take students who have just graduated, been out 5 years, who go back to their classes, to their classmates, and tell them the benefits of working in a small community. Because we are not unlike North Dakota and all the other more rural states that are having trouble locating and finding doctors and physicians who will move to smaller towns. So we are definitely making a concerted effort to let our young lawyers know that you can have a great life in rural Oklahoma, access to a lot of good things. And one of the things is you can often take over a practice from someone who's an older attorney and who wants to bring you in, groom you, turn over their caseload, and that's a real boon for a young attorney.
Let's talk a little bit about the structure of the Oklahoma Bar Association, the leadership structure. You're the president, but to whom do you report?
I report basically to the Oklahoma Supreme Court and to our membership, I would say.
What about the Board of Governors? Are they?
And the Board of Governors, we work together with the board. We have 17 members of the board, and I have a wonderful board this year who's very engaged and very involved. They are all elected from across the state. Yes.
And what is your interaction with the Supreme Court?
Well, we are a creature of the Supreme Court, and they approve our budget. We have a liaison who attends our board meetings, so the court is kept up to date of what we are doing in the bar and provides any communication we need to have with the court.
All right. We're going to take a break and get right back. Renee DeMoss is the president of the Oklahoma State Bar Association. We'll be back with more after this.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
We're back on the set of The Verdict. We're visiting with the new president of the Oklahoma Bar Association. Kent?
Yeah, Renee, talk to us a little bit about the concept of judicial independence and what kind of involvement you've had with that since you took over.
All right. We all know that our government is set up by our founders with 3 separate and equal branches. The legislative that makes the law, the executive that enforces the law, and the judicial which applies the law. And each of those branches have their own jobs to do.
And they're equal branches.
They're equal branches. Right. And in order to make sure that we have justice, that our rights are protected, our judges need to be free to make rulings based only on the facts and law evidence of the case before them, and not on any political pressure, any undue influence, anything outside that one case. And that is what our system is based on. That's what Oklahomans have come to expect from their courts. And that is what makes us a free society.
Well, how does Oklahoma compare to other states in that regard? What's the reputation?
Well, I think it's very good with respect to our state court judicial nominating system, how we select judges to be on the appellate bench, and trial judges in between elections. We have a system that is non-political. It was specifically designed to be non-political, and it's based on the merit and qualifications of an individual lawyer to become a judge. We have a system where we do a lot of vetting and review of an individual's background, and they are thoroughly reviewed before they even get to the bench. So what has happened recently, and I'd say in the last several years, there have been some legislative proposals that would change that system. And those proposals would really have injected politics back into our system. What's important here and what's very interesting is that we have the system we do that is in fact a model for our entire nation as a result of a scandal that occurred back in the 1960s involving our Supreme Court. And after that bribery scandal, the Oklahoma Bar Association, the legislature, community leaders worked together to put in a system that would prevent that from ever happening again.
Well, and the people voted on it, did they not?
People voted on it.
It's in our Constitution.
It's a constitutional issue, yes.
Yep.
And it's worked well since then, and no one has ever really been able to come up with a reason to change it, and that's why these proposals are puzzling to me. We have issues, obviously, with bridges, the Capitol, our schools. Let's fix something that needs to be fixed, not something that works.
There have been some proposals, I understand, I've not read them or not familiar with them intimately, that would shift in some respect approval of who might be allowed to serve on the bench to the legislature from the Judicial Nominating Commission and the governor. What do you know about that, and what is the status of that?
Well, you're probably referring to the proposed measure we had that would have removed the constitutional right of lawyers and OBA members to select the attorney members of the JNC, and minority members. And the proposal was that instead of attorneys from across the state electing 6 attorney members based on their knowledge of those local attorneys to the commission, those would become political appointments of the legislature. So they would be moved from elected positions to political appointments. And that was an issue that was extremely important to the bar. And when we heard about this particular measure, we let our members know about it. And they took action, and also the public took action to contact legislators to sign online petitions saying this is not a good idea. We need to keep politics out of our courts in Oklahoma.
Now, the lawyer members of the Judicial Nominating Commission today are in the minority, are they not? There are more lay members on the commission than there are lawyer members. So the lawyers, unless they're particularly persuasive, can't control it.
They can't control it. What's good about this system that we have, it gives everyone a voice, but no voice dominates. We have governor appointments, we have executive, we have the legislative appointments, we have the public who votes to retain the judges. So we have lawyer participation, so we have a lot of different voices participating, but no one voice dominates, and that's why it works.
Is there anything that you're aware of that is likely to be on the November ballot that deals with selection of judges?
Well, what is today, the 14th?
Yes.
So we have 30, how many days? 16 days left, 17 days in the session, the legislative session this year. So
never too late.
It's never too late, so hopefully not.
But assuming there isn't something pop up in the last few days, there will not be anything.
That's correct.
What are some of the other initiatives you're working on in your tenure as bar president?
One of the fun ones is furthering the goal of educating the public about the role of judiciary in Oklahoma. So we have been conducting judicial town halls, we call them, across the state. And we're going to different county courthouses and other venues and talking with the public about what our judges do, how we select them, and getting input and feedback from them on the questions they have. And that's been really fun to go out and talk with people from rural Oklahoma, people I grew up with, that kind of thing. And just kind of educate them about our system, because it's really important. We've got to protect our courts in order to protect our rights.
Let me tell you something from a personal perspective. I've served under many bar presidents over the years. So many I'm not going to tell you how many. But I watched with interest the initiative that you mounted when you became president to get the lawyers geared up and to have them make their wishes known to the legislature. I've never, in the many years I've practiced, seen as effective an effort put forth by the Bar Association to put forth a position as was done by you and your staff, and successfully, I might add. So you're to be congratulated on that.
And the bar staff was outstanding in helping us do this with the communications department and our executive director, John Moore. So it's a total team effort.
What other initiatives are you going to be working on?
We'll have the judicial town halls. We're getting into our local schools to help them with the civics lessons that they can't easily teach anymore. We have created a senior section so that we can harness the skills and professionalism of our older lawyers in volunteer activities and help them. We're working with the law schools, and we're also planning a day of service this year like we had last year, where lawyers in all 77 of our counties will participate in a public service project to demonstrate our commitment to the public and to show that we lawyers in Oklahoma are professionals and we care about our state.
Well, and you have the Ask a Lawyer program. Tell our viewers about that.
We had that. That was May 1st this year, and it was in connection with our recognition of National Law Day, where we celebrate our system of legal system in Oklahoma. And we had lawyers from all over the state who gave up their billable activities for a day. They went to, they would answer phone calls from anyone who called in on legal questions. We had some that would go to local public libraries and talk to people and give free legal advice in the libraries. So it's a great effort.
What's the single biggest challenge facing the Oklahoma Bar Association now in the minute we have remaining?
I think it will be the continuing effort to ensure that our courts remain fair, impartial, and that our judges are qualified. Nonpartisan. I think that is something that we will see next year and the year after. So we need to continue our efforts to inform the public and talk to our legislators who were very receptive.
Some judges are elected, some are appointed. Do you prefer one way or the other?
Well, in our system, we have our trial judges at a local level are elected on the theory that they know their judges. On the appellate level, they go through the process of the JNC. And I think that with the JNC, that does give a vetting process that is lacking in the election system.
All right. Renee DeMoss is the president of the Oklahoma Bar Association. We're so glad you came on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah,
enjoyed
keep up the
it.
good work.
You guys are fun.
Pass it along. We'll be back with a final word after this.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state. It really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
We are back on the set of The Verdict after a visit with the new bar president.
Yes. Well, Renee DeMoss has been well thought of for many, many years here in the legal community in Oklahoma, and we really appreciate her giving us her time to come down here from Tulsa and do this show. She had a particularly difficult challenge when she took over as president this year because of the renewed, vigorous legislative efforts to change the method of selection of judges in Oklahoma and, frankly, to insert partisanship or insert political party membership into the selection process, which got the lawyers pretty well, regardless of their party affiliation, got them pretty well gathered together to organize an effort to try to defeat that, and they have basically done that. Renee is well received around the state. As you know, she lived in a lot of small towns in Oklahoma before settling in Tulsa, so she can relate well to anybody in any community and has just done a grand job with the Bar Association.
There's a lot more members than I would have guessed.
Yeah, 17,000. Yeah, when I won't tell you when, but when I joined, there were 6,000. So we've added a few to make up for my mistakes.
Well, they've had to build up just to combat yours.
That's right.
That's right. We have some website information for you. You can find out more information about Renee's organization, the Oklahoma Bar Association, at oba.org. That's oba.org. And we have a website. We'd love for you to log on and tell us about a show or a guest that you'd like to see on a future edition of The Verdict. Our website is theverdict.tv. We'll see you next week.